We are here to discuss the movie The Third Man, the 1949 movie starring Orson Welles and Joseph Cotton.
Directed by Carol Reed. I was about to say Steven for a second.
Yeah.
99% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, so Patrick and I here, I'm Connor.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Matt. And I'm Michael.
Yeah, and Patrick and I here know a little bit about movies where Matt and Michael are a little bit more novice to the camera angles and all of that. So watching 1949 movie was probably a little bit more boring to them, but I'm interested to hear on your guys' thoughts of what's classified as one of the best thrillers of all time. If you felt
Yeah,
intense.
I mean, even though it was like an older movie, I still found it very entertaining. Like it did get off to kind of a slower start, but I did like Pat, you were saying, the movie really came full circle.
Yeah, it starts with Harry Lime's death, and then comes he's actually dead in the very, very end.
Michael, any thoughts you had on watching it?
I enjoyed it. I actually took a Western film class with you, and they talk a lot about Westerns in the beginning of the film, and a lot of his inspiration comes from Western. And I saw a lot of tropes similar to.
Yeah. I think with Holly Martin being the Pulp Fiction writer that he is,
Yeah.
he was writing a lot of Westerns and stuff like that. So you heard a lot of them, like this kind of cowboy rolls into town to solve this murder. You kind of saw this, but kind of set in Vienna, post-war. And this, you see the dilapidated buildings and, next to people trying to survive. And you obviously got to talk about Orson Welles' performance here as Harvey Lime. What did you guys think of that? How did you feel like his character was done?
I thought it was performed excellently. The twist at the end, or in the middle, I guess, where the movie takes a shift from a murder mystery to an action betrayal thriller. I really thought Orson Welles pulled it off.
Yeah.
He was the kind he portrayed the kind of guy who would go out of his way to fake his death just to be foiled at the end by echoes, no less. That's really what stood him up was he got to that chamber and he couldn't decide which whole tunnel to go through because all the echoes.
Yeah, he very much became I felt like a rat trapped quickly there. He all of a sudden
he was just surrounded.
He's just I can no longer I can no longer escape this place. And you saw the panic on his as he gained there. And one thing I really think that was interesting about the Harvey Lime character is when they talked earlier on about how he was very childlike and had this childlike mentality. And kind of once you saw that he was not actually dead and he was just in the shadows in that one scene, that amazing scene of his reveal, it really then all of a sudden started to feel like a game of hide and seek with him, which that last scene really captured with him in the shadows running around I don't know, it was just this hide and seek game that he had let get too out of control.
So Michael brought up a good point. We don't actually see his death. It cuts away and we hear the bang. Do you think he was set free?
I think he was definitely dead because I don't think that police detective would have been happy unless he saw the body go into the ground.
That's very true. That is a very good point.
But the fact that he could still be alive brings into my next point, which is that I think the girl could have been in on it the entire time.
Anna?
Yeah, because
I could definitely see
she's
that.
an actress and she is when she's confronted by the cops, they ask if she knows it, if she knows anything, and she definitely acts like she doesn't know.
Yeah,
well, definitely, and she talks very suspicious, and in the end, she was always devoted to.
And she walks past
Lime.
the guy
Well, exactly. Right at the very ending
Yeah.
scene,
Just shunning him.
iconic.
If Henry's or Harvey's still alive, then that's why she walked past him.
Or if he's dead, that's why she walked past him because she was still
true.
in love with him.
could work either way.
Yeah, I think it was interesting with her character when Anna has her papers being examined by all of them for like that first time. They do a really cool cut or a shot of her behind a window with like the crosses, like the cross, whatever the things, the little wood things, and the
Oh, the
panes.
panes, the
Yeah.
window panes.
Yeah, but it very much like had a shadow like cast on her. It was very much a like I'm in a cage. I've been like trapped. So it was interesting to see how the camera work and stuff like that really kind of showed you some things that were going on in the subtext of the movie. Where since it's a movie, there is no real subtext because there's no text. But it was like that those things that going around in the background. And another really interesting thing I kind of pointed out, I think, to you guys halfway through the movie was really at any point where there was confusion or misdirection or some sort of like people didn't understand what was going on, this director had the camera at a Dutch tilt where everything was slightly askew in the frame. And I think that really did a good job of like when you, the viewer watching it, all of a sudden it's crooked, you're confused, you're like, what is going on here? What are we doing? Why is this guy telling me stuff? Like, and it's just like
perspective.
Yeah, it really helps you get into the mindset of like Holly, what is it, Mathers or Martins?
Holly Martins.
Yeah, and how
Like when
he's just
framed
like
for murder and he's running up the staircase and it pans up
yeah,
and you see the entire staircase going up.
it's
That
just so
was cool.
that winding,
the winding
like,
staircase.
That was pretty cool.
yeah.
Definitely.
And then I think that just the character of Holly was really interesting. Like, what do you guys like? How do you guys feeling about him from beginning to end? Watching him arrive and this place get entangled in Harvey's deeds. How do you feel about him towards the end?
It definitely speaks largely about his character as a whole, because he's a mystery author, right? He writes books about mysteries and unsolved crimes. And yet he gets himself into a mystery of
Yeah, he definitely the mystery author in him definitely like piques his curiosity and drive to
No. Okay. Sorry. I'll flip it around. It's
technical
you're holding it up.
difficulties. What?
This is what records.
Oh, okay. I saw this part.
That's the speak.
Assumed.
All right.
All
Sorry
right.
about that.
Sorry. What was I saying now?
I don't know.
Oh, his mystery author piqued his like curiosity into like trying to solve a real murder mystery for himself, and like if anything, just for new material. And,
Yeah, he was just.
Yeah.
He seemed like he was just like very interested in just like being around the city, just like like there were like several scenes of him just like walking around the city.
Yeah.
Like he's really just trying to
Yeah.
take it all in.
I think that one interesting thing about him that I read from I think a Sun Times article on the thing was that the Holly character is like that the Holly, like even when you start with that first name, he just comes off as this innocent guy, like, and that's what he plays throughout the whole movie. Like he's this innocent guy, wide-eyed to the world, being shown the dark underbelly, and he's just like, I don't know what I'm doing here.
just a whack author who falls for girls.
Yeah.
As he would put himself in.
Well, yeah, and he tries to do right by her and like all this stuff, and it's just like he doesn't understand the world he stepped into now.
Yeah.
And like I think that end where he has to like kill his friend is just like this fully like I've gone completely down the rabbit hole. Harvey has pulled me all the way in.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I liked him. I liked the casting a lot for this. Obviously, Orson Welles really nailed that part, but I think that Holly, the actor who played Holly, really also does a really good job of that. Like, again, innocence coming into the world, but like one thing I too noticed,
But not stupidity. Like he's very knowledgeable in like getting to the bottom of it. Very much a problem solver, I guess.
Yeah, but one thing too, I'll just say too about Holly, I really noticed was the fact that he was an outsider. He's treated as an outsider throughout the whole movie. And really at every point you see him, he's like either barred by language, barred by doors. Like you see him looking in on a lot of people. He's always usually by himself outside of the crowds and all that stuff.
Yeah. And when he's in the car getting taken to that event, there's even bars between him and the driver.
Yeah. So it's always, that's exactly. It's always interesting with movies again where you see this subtext. And like one thing it's really talked about in this movie, I think in the New Yorker or New York Times articles I read as well, was the score, like the amount of work that goes into like the music behind each person, and the fact that actually Harvey has his own music. So like when his character, they're dealing with him, you hear that like it's that tone it starts, and it's right at the beginning too. Like it's this whole misdirection one guy is set up that leads him eventually to his own demise. But
yeah, definitely. I also read a fun fact about this movie. The narration at the beginning was put in only for the U.S. version to sort of tell the U.S. audience what's going on in that country, because a lot of at the time they didn't know, Austria, Vienna was divided between the communists and capitalists.
Yeah, that's just always good to know. Americans are living their own little bubble over here.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm really happy with this movie. I see why it's not still watched by like everyone. It's an amazing thriller. When the point when they're in the Ferris wheel and they have that like conversation, it's such an intense moment where I feel like a lot of movies today, it costs thousands and thousands of dollars to get that tenseness going. Like, it's got to be something extreme in movies today. But in that, it's just like two men on a Ferris wheel. The door opens and they have a conversation.
An intimidating conversation,
and you're just like, oh, this is just terrifying. Like something's gonna go down. So the door closes, they get off. You're like, what was that? Like you can't just do that to me. Like,
I thought the tension was just like crazy. Like. When that door opened, like there were so many like possibilities of like things that like were running through my head at least. Like I thought someone was gonna get like pushed out.
Yeah, I definitely thought there was gonna be a lot more like there was definitely a lot of points where someone could get killed.
Yeah,
and then like the scene changes and all of a sudden everything's like fine apparently. Like they talked their way out of it.
It was interesting too the way like what crime he had committed. I think the watering down or whatever of the penicillin drug, and it's like it's interesting for the time too. Like what's the worst thing you could do? It's just like not letting kids get their medicine, and then the way he plays him at the end is like, oh, I gotta go to a meeting now. It's like. I would have been like in the car, like, what do you mean you gotta go to a meeting? We were supposed to be doing a thing right now. Why do you have a meeting at the time we were supposed to be doing it? I just switched plans on you. When they stop and they go in, and I'm like, well, I just had to say, like, from the outside, you gotta go, okay, we're at a hospital. Why would I go in the hospital? Like, I'm on my way to a flight. I just had this whole thing with my best friend. I'm not gonna go to a hospital. But he goes in, and then
for the writing material.
Yeah. He's like, for the story.
Yep. Plot progression.
I thought it was interesting too with his like I'm gonna give a speech to stay for free at this place, and then the guys pick him up and he thinks he's being kidnapped, and he shows up there and he's like, he almost seems like you wish he was kidnapped because he just bombs up on that stage and you're just like,
oh, I know he blew it, dude.
And it's
terrible.
It's also really interesting too because like it's hard to determine if he's a good writer or not. Like people are like, oh, I read your stuff, but then like
they never explain like that they liked it, or it's like, oh, it was there for sure.
It was a terrible presentation, but it was a good scene, if that makes any sense. Because it was meant to be bad.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think this whole movie was very good at like pulling you in with the scenes and the color. Definitely with you can really speak to like the blacks and whites. Obviously, it is black and white, but they use shadows so well, and I think a lot of movies with color don't utilize shadow as well as they do in these older movies
because the shadows are very black, very apparent.
Yeah, like the contrast is just like you can really bask one character in white light and the other one in darkness, and it's just that really interesting like struggle.
Really can throw the scene together and just raise the tension all in itself.
Yeah, my only thing is I'm not really sure. Like I was watching it in the love story between Holly and Anna is there, but it's like, I would have just gotten on the plane at the end. Like,
yeah, right.
this woman seems like a lot of trouble. She's kind of like I don't understand Anna's point. Like, I get it. She's like, oh, I love him. Why doesn't he take her to the children's hospital? Like, I mean, this is his victims. Like, I would have been like, yo, you know what he said to me up on that Ferris wheel? He's like, look at these dots. I don't care about any of these dots. Those are people.
Yeah.
Like,
For real.
it's
Just
like,
dots.
yeah, and he's like,
He's
man,
like, they're ants to me now.
he's not a nice guy. And like,
It's like we just got on a Ferris wheel. We'll be down there. There'll be people again. They're not dots.
Yeah.
I would love to be like, it'd be interesting to see like what the relationship was with Harry and Holly before this.
Yeah, right.
Because it's hard to determine it once you see them like in the middle of the things, but like it's hard to imagine those two personalities being best friends.
Yeah.
So you assume that Harry must have changed a lot since his time here or something, but they say that he doesn't change a lot. Like, he's always been this kind of like wild guy, like, oh, doing all this crazy
Childish
stuff.
charm.
Yeah. It's interesting too, with Holly's book, like the Oakland Fire or whatever. It's very much a like crazed gunman, which is what the
Oakland kid.
The Oakland kid, yeah. That's what it eventually comes down to. The one kid running through, just the crazed gunman, you know. Yeah, I really think I liked this. Would you guys watch it again or recommend it to someone else?
I would actually probably watch it again. I really liked it.
I'd recommend it, but I think one time's enough for me. But like
I'm glad
like
I watched
it was a good movie.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good movie. I do think it's an old movie.
It's very
I
apparent.
thought he was gonna play a bigger role.
The best friend or
black market
Yeah.
guy.
I thought
the
he was
guy.
gonna be like the mafia lord. Because I came into this
He looked
knowing
like
nothing
it.
about the movie.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh well, he's gonna be the bad guy, obviously. Because I didn't know the other guy was. I thought he was.
He wears the bow tie. He's creepy. He's
Yeah.
got that black
Got
hat.
the Heisenberg hat.
Yeah.
fur coat.
Fur
Creepy.
coat.
But yeah, no, I think
And the dog.
Yeah.
I think that this movie, you can see a lot of where newer thrillers got techniques. You know, the stuff that they like how to build suspense and stuff like that. And it's just hard moving from fast-paced movies we have nowadays back to these slower ones where it's more of a stage play. You know,
I don't
It's
think
more
slow
of a
movies can work
story.
anymore.
yeah, you got to hold and captivate the whole time. I mean, you people use that budget. But I mean, some of the shots in this were like just really great that you just like I feel like people don't utilize anymore.
Mhm.
A lot of this those again, there weren't a lot of effects needed for this, but the practical effects using just the casting of shadows and
Yeah.
the
The
running.
cinematography in general.
Yeah, I thought the last scene, just like that guy just like waiting for her to like walk to him, but just like walks all the way past. Like I didn't think that they'd actually film the entire walk.
Oh yeah, the last scene.
Because like that was
That was
kind of far away.
That was a long take. Michael pointed out that they drove past her just to stop and wait for her.
Yeah.
And then she walked past him.
Yep.
So it literally didn't matter, that entire scene.
I know.
Doesn't make sense.
But it does, because like it shows the relationship between those two now. Like it kind of ends the story.
Yeah.
That was a
He's-
good ending.
Yeah.
I think I want to know too. So since this is set in the post-war time, do you think that like a lot of like you learned a little bit about like what it's like in Vienna in the post-war era? Like
Yeah,
Kinda,
it
yeah.
definitely opens your eyes a bit to see the Russian rule over like Vienna. Berlin was probably very similar, but
I wonder too if
arguably
there's like
worse.
I wonder if too if there's some commentary going on here with kind of the Americans coming in and being really confused about what's going on and trying to solve problems for these people.
Oh yeah.
And it's a lot of like, we don't really want your help, and then it's like, okay, we need your help, and then it's like, okay, like it's just
We don't
like,
want your help. We don't want your help. Okay, we need your help.
I don't know.
World War II.
Yep. summed up, I guess.
Yeah, it's just a lot of. I mean, in a movie of misdirection coming after a war of misdirection, it's interesting to see the parallels that run there, and a lot of just the way I like a lot of like the actors instead he would pronounce names and they would correct them and they'd be like, I'm English, not Irish.
Yeah.
So it's like you still hear that like, oh, I care, like my family has this history, I care, like please refer to me as this. And it happens a few times throughout the movie, but at the end of the day, it's like it's very different than the world we live in now. Like someone mispronounces your name, you're like,
That's
right.
close enough.
No one ever gets my last name right.
Yeah.
Ever.
So 101.
Yeah, that's not even my last name. Yes.
But yeah, so it's an interesting glimpse into the past when you watch these old movies, though they're manipulated by who directed them and what they decided to show. I still think seeing a lot of the sets of like the dilapidated buildings, but everyone kind of going on with their lives, like, yep.
It's just my regular walk to work.
Yeah, it's just like, building, destroyed building, destroyed building, destroyed building. It's like, yeah, maybe one day they won't be destroyed buildings, but right now they're destroyed, so we don't use them.
They're just over there in the big rock pile.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if I'd ever watch the movie again. Like, if recently, I maybe watch it in the future, like showing someone some films and like, this is a good one to check, but I'm definitely glad to see it. Now, like, I'm excited to go forward and look at other films and be like, oh, that's a Third Man thing. Like, the Third Man. Like, I love, too, that's a great title where it's like he spends that first half of the movie looking for this third man no one's ever heard of. And they eventually, like, it's like the third man means nothing. It's just like, it's like he was alive. Like, because the third man's dead and in the grave.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I love his, like, just scene too where he's just like, yep, working on a new book, gonna call it The Third Man. Like, he's just like, they're all just like, how much do you know? I know this much, but I know maybe more, maybe. Like,
pinching around trying to get what you want.
Yeah. A very, misdirection is that we've said before. It's also interesting too that the main Anna actress changed her hair. Just kind of an extra side note. Because it's just confusing. I was confused for a minute. I was like,
oh, the
she was
blonde
blonde.
brunette.
I was like, oh, she's brunette, but
Double
morning.
Kinda.
Well, she was Russian or Czechoslovakian too.
Yeah.
Like she does the Russian accent for a second. So I don't know. Some cold wills.
007.
He's 007. 007, killing kids with penicillin. That's
or the lack of.
Yeah, the lack of penicillin. But yeah, so I guess we'll just end it with, I guess, an overall rating of how you guys felt about it, and we'll move on with our lives. Michael, do you want to start? We'll go around that way.
Is this like a 99%?
I would say just do it out of I would say do it out of 10.
Like 1 out of 10.
All right. I'd give it a 7. A solid 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe 7.5. I thought it was pretty good.
I'd give it a solid 7 as an overall movie, but coming from a film perspective, I would say it's probably an 8, just because of how much they like influenced future movies.
Yeah,
like you can tell, like, oh, just from watching other stuff in the past, it's like they got it from this, they got it from like Citizen Kane, like it's all picked up.
I think it's definitely one of those movies that I'm gonna call it a 7 here, but I'm gonna go forward and like watch other shows and other movies, and I'm like, oh, it's taken right for Third Man. Maybe that was better than I thought it was. And so I assume it will move up to the 8 later on, but I'm definitely glad I watched it. Would definitely recommend it to people who like movies. Yeah. Thanks you guys for being on and watching movies with me. It's always fun.
Anytime.
So again, I'm signing off here. This is Connor.
This is Patrick.
This is Matt.
Michael.
Have a good day, everybody.
See ya.